Hey, everybody. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. Yeah,
All
thanks.
right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live Momentum Monday. We're so happy to see you. And all I can say is it feels like Monday.
It does.
Oh my gosh, what a weekend.
Yeah.
But today's topic for episode 10, that's where we are right now, is top tips on clarifying your voice. And I hope that this is a topic that interests you. And we want this to be really live and interactive, right, Lisa?
Yes, definitely.
So I wrote my little list down of my top 10 tips, and we're going to just kind of discuss one at a time. And what my hope and our hope is that they will be helpful as you guys continue on with your journey, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, it doesn't matter. Uh, all of these tips are for helping you kind of like what is the shortest path between you and getting to your personal voice. Uh, from my experience working with a lot of different students, it seems to be kind of top on their mind, and they get bothered when they feel like they've been painting for a year or 5 years or even 10 years and they don't have one identifiable voice, right, Lisa? I mean,
Yes.
that. Um, so, Lisa, how long have you been painting?
Since about 2015.
Okay, well, that's not a very long time. 8 years. I mean, that is. Some might consider that to be a long time. I remember somebody saying a long time ago to me when I was first starting out in my 20s, I think I was. And I remember reading somewhere that, don't expect even anything to happen until you've been doing art for 10 years. And Lisa, you've won awards and entered juried shows and gotten in. So obviously, but you put a lot of time into your studio, right? Like how
Yes.
many hours a week would you say you on a good week that you.
Oh, I don't know because, besides painting time, there's a lot of admin time. So, yeah, there's a lot.
And you also are in many, many groups where you admin. Yeah, you admin a lot of groups. So when I was a young artist, I would say that I easily, I started to paint when our boys were young, and they actually napped for a long time. So I actually kind of lucked out that way. And they would nap for like 4 hours at a time. So I would definitely get in, 4 hours a day would be the minimum, I'd say. And I did that consistently after their nap time, as they grew up. I'd say I kind of kept that schedule. And I would say that um, when I was only working in watercolor, like I felt like my voice was very clear. And that was partly because I only worked in one medium. So, number one, if you only work in one medium, that is an easier challenge than if you work in multiple mediums. Do you work in multiple mediums, Lisa?
Yes, definitely. So there's more to it.
Yeah. And each medium has its pros and cons. I've always felt that, you're only one person. So if you switch mediums, the way to have cohesion over multiple mediums then is that you technically need to, if it's a line, you love mark making, which I do. So I'm just using that as an example. That was actually pretty hard for me to figure out when I went to encaustic. It's hard to get that the same quality of free flowing line. But then when I found it, okay, so I found it, but I had to do a lot of experimentation to find that quality of line. And until you find that technically, there will be a little discrepancy between, oh, this looks like an encaustic and it's a little different than say my cold wax and oil. And that's just, but I say that, but by the same token, uh, each medium does have its pros and cons. And it might be that you choose a different medium because it expresses you in a different way. And maybe
Yeah.
that's just totally fine, right, Lisa? Like,
Yes. Yes, I think so.
don't expect yourself to be identical no matter what medium you're choosing. Part of the reason you're choosing another medium is A, because you might have been frustrated with watercolor, which I was, and you're ready to try something different because maybe it won't be so unforgiving the way watercolor is. And again, that's what acrylic was for me. And you work in acrylic, Lisa.
Yes, I do.
There's so many things that are easier in acrylic than they ever were with watercolor. So that's one thing. And the whole idea of then bringing in collage, So, anyways, so I've got these 10 tips, and I just wanted, I hope you guys will use chat a lot and like let us know if these topics I'm going over speak to you, and you might have additional tips, which I'm sure you will.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah. So my top tip is that the more time that you spend in play, and for those artists that work with me personally, play is a time when basically you don't have any expectations of yourself. You're able to put yourself in the mindset of a 3-year-old, which actually is a lot harder than for some artists than it may sound, you know.
It is.
Yeah, if you can put yourself into the play mindset, then I think the more you'll be able to identify what piques your interest in the first place, right? It's kind of like when you're messing around, you're more liable to try things that are kind of off the deep end. They're crazy, they're silly, they're fun, they make you happier, they make you smile. Um, versus when you have a deadline, you've got a show coming up, or you're like, I have to finish this painting by this date. That's a totally different mindset. This is the one where you don't have a deadline. And so that's my number one tip. How many of you out there feel that play is a very important period of your day? However much time you give it, it could be in a sketchbook, it could be on a slop board, it could be that you just give yourself that opportunity to have, say, a painting that you're always going to plan for the next year and you never have a deadline. Let me see if I can find in chat if anybody's responding to that question.
Let's see. Not yet. We've got that wonderful lag that we always have. Here we have Bonnie.
Bonnie. It's Bonnie, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good comment, Bonnie. So thank you for that. We can pin her comment, Lisa.
Yes, and here they come. Maureen says she could play all day. Oh, yeah, bunches of them. Love play. Favorite thing. It's the rest she struggles with. That's Marla. Yeah, playtime, do it daily. Play is biggest reason she wants to paint. That's Tamara's. That's great. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, these are all really important comments, you guys. And since I know you guys who I'm pinning, Tamara and Bonnie and Karen, yeah, and those of you I don't work with, it's so wonderful that you're here. Thank you so much. You guys know then that's kind of the ever-giving spring. It's kind of like the fountain of youth, I guess. If you allow yourself to play, I really do feel like now I don't know how to remove that comment, Lisa. You got to find the original. There it is. Okay. So yeah, thank you guys for that feedback, because in our experience, that has been really important. Number 2 is to create work in a series. And the reason that I just wanted to really kind of have this at the top, because this is about clarifying your voice. This is not so much about the person who's maybe an absolute beginner, because an absolute beginner is probably likely not going to work in a series. However, if you were an absolute beginner and you happen to be here, if you can, and you give yourself some limitations, limitations actually give you a lot of freedom. And it's one of those almost oxymorons, because limitations and freedom don't seem to go in the same sentence. But actually, when it comes to art, and I wrote down a couple possibilities here. And so what happens is that when you give yourself parameters, it means that you're kind of like not going to go to X, Y, and Z. You're going to focus on A, B, and C. And it means you're going to be able to focus on things that really matter to you, and not get in the weeds on things that could be in your painting. Because when you think about it, there's a whole lot that can be in your painting. But making art is making a lot of choices. So when you limit yourself to the number of things that are going to be happening in this particular painting, you're limiting the number of massive choices that you could have to make. So for example, let's say you're going to make a series and you're going to choose one medium. Okay, that's just, these are just examples. But you're going to say to yourself, okay, for this series, I'm going to keep it to acrylic and collage, for example. And then I'm going to have them all be one size. And then I'm going to just focus on like one main design element. And I chose that example because I'm actually doing that right now. And so for me, I was like, well, what am I doing, right? So Lisa, if you can switch to well, that's okay. Don't even do that. I'm going to just hold these panels up. This is a series I've been working on now I just kind of started it. These were remember the 8 paintings that were disparate and had nothing to do with each other? And I have not worked on all 8. I've started with 2 at a time. And then I went to the next 2 I started with the ones that were like the least developed. And what I'm trying to do is get 2 at a time to a certain level. And then I choose the next 2 that are like really suffering, get those to another level, to the same level. I'll do that with all 8 until they're all like, okay, they're kind of at the same level. So I already come up with the title for the series, and it's going to be called Lexicon. And you don't have to always know why you're doing something or why something appeals to you. I mean, why do letters and typography appeal to me? I have no idea, except that I love shape. And because I spend so much time on my computer, maybe it's that darn keyboard that's like in my head. Right, Lisa? You have that same thing going on. So I just wanted to show you, like, this one has not been sanded. But these other ones they have, and so they look a little different. Plus they're kind of a little bit glossy. And I'm going to show you a way to knock back the gloss when you're just like you can see how glossy that is, right?
Oh, yeah,
so it's hard to take a photo. But letters really mean something. Like they feel good to me, and I don't know why. As a shape, I mean, I love man-made shapes. So like this goofy shape up here is not a letter, but it's part of a letter. So and that can be part of the lexicon series. And so I'm just playing with letters, goofy things like this here is not an A, although you can see it's peeking over here and it looks like an A. I'm not worrying about that now. These are not finished. These are I would say, like, I've moved on to explore. And for those who work with me, you kind of know what that means. So I just want to point out that this series has some parameters. They're all 12 by 12. They're all acrylic. They all have some form of letters. Okay, so those are 3, and I do have a limited palette based on my inspiration by Willa's palette. She's only 3 years old, so my palette also. So you can have as many parameters as you want. And just to show you the difference between, say, how far this one is anyways, this is one of my slot boards, essentially, that I haven't worked on yet. Okay, so you can see how far I have to work on these to get them to this level. So I would say now that this one's lagging behind because of my series. This one's not speaking to this one enough. It's got a lot of stuff going on, just like this one's super crazy. Basically another, it's a little bit more than a slot board. So I don't want to say that it's an exact slot board, but it has a ways to go, right? To get to where these 4 panels are. And then here's one that really needs a lot of help. So yeah, I've got my work cut out for me, but keeping in mind that this is play, and play is just a great place to start because you never know. My play boards are each so different from one another. You're not saying, when I did my play boards, the only thing that I did was keep the same palette. That's all I did. I wasn't focusing on letters because I didn't know the series was going to morph into letters. I didn't, that came later. Okay, so I just want to point out that a series has many things you could choose. Another possible collection of parameters would be, what about saturated color with close values and large shapes? So one thing we learned from Tote Shink, who was a visitor who gave a presentation for our pro members, was that he did a presentation showing that, hey, if you're all about saturated color, if you keep your values close, then those saturated colors will mean a whole lot more. And then Brian Rutenberg came and visited us, right? Lisa, one of your favorites.
Yes.
And if you convert his work to black and white, you'll see that in a lot of cases, much of his value areas are quite close. Would you agree to that,
yes,
Lisa?
Absolutely.
And because he's all about color, bright color, beautiful color. He loves color. Lisa's about color.
Yep.
You find, Lisa, that you keep your values kind of close in general?
I do. Mm-hmm. Okay,
so that works for her and it works for Brian. So another idea would be curvilinear line plus hard edges plus a monochromatic color palette. And can you see that if you have a monochromatic color palette, like for example, blue plus black and white, you're not going to be sitting there like, well, what do I do with the orange? And what do I do with the purple? And what do I do with the, the pink? Well, they're not in your painting, so you don't have to worry about them. You've just cut out a whole bunch of colors that could be in there confusing you. And you've made the choice to limit your palette to one color. And now you can focus on the things that you really care about, like curvilinear lines and large shapes, right? Because on any given day, there are some things you feel more strongly about, or maybe you're just curious about them. Like, what would it be like if I just had large shapes? What would it be like if I had just tiny, tiny shapes in a grid? That what if is the driver, I think, for any, right? Lisa, do you use that
Yes.
a lot?
Oh,
You
yeah,
do.
for sure.
You're such an innovative artist. I mean, and to keep that momentum and productivity going, if you start to adopt those two words, what if, let that be your driver. And because to finish that sentence, you have to fill it in with something you probably haven't tried before. And it could be that you have a successful series, you just completed it, you've got 10 paintings you had a show, maybe they all sold. Well, what if I change one parameter? Because you don't want it to go stale. You could do another 10 paintings and they would sell, and do another 10 paintings and they would sell. But how much would you grow? So to continue growing, but keep this continuous thread, find your happy place with, say, three parameters that are really going to work for you. And you're going to have to work hard to make those work for you. It's not going to be like magically your three parameters that you chose are going to be like, bingo, that's it. I mean, you might have to try 10 series before you come upon one you like.
That's right.
Is that right for you? Like,
Oh, yeah.
how many series would you say you've worked on, Lisa?
I haven't done as many series because of only starting abstract
Yeah. Okay.
right before COVID. So,
But you've done a more realistic series in your watercolor. Those
right.
are
Oh,
all
yeah.
cupcakes,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
You've done, and all the pieces I've seen that have gotten awards are also like this beautiful, loose abstraction spontaneity.
Hmm.
You could say that it's about line and just expressive line, and
Yes.
usually you have a limited palette, and
Yes.
this is the thing. Like, you put anyone on the spot, like I just put Lisa on the spot,
Yeah.
right?
I'm like,
I could put any one of you guys on the spot, and you'd be like,
yeah.
And the point of that is other people will see it in your work sometimes before you yourself do.
Mm,
And although I do have something to say about who you would ask for that advice.
that's right.
How many of you on this call have worked in a series, and what has that done for you? Has that helped you to clarify who you are? Because that is the point of today's episode 10. We'd love to hear your comments. Okay, let's
Yes.
grab this comment here. Amy says, "Love the lexicon idea. Thank you. Lover of words. I find it very exciting. Do you, and again, people love words for different. Like, I am not a massive reader. I fall asleep when I read, so I can't say I'm going to call this lexicon because I love to read. I'm going to say I'm going to call it lexicon. Partly, I don't really know why I love typography, because I don't really have any graphic design background where you look at a ton of fonts and you have to probably memorize all the names. But I do spend a lot of time on my keyboard. So it's kind of like connected to my body. Like, it's definitely connected to my body. It's probably why I weigh so much. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Oh, thank you for the slop boards. Yes, thank you very much, but they're not done, Marla. Hopefully there will be more of a transformation. And then we have, okay, Maureen Howard, your series can be what, you're saying, I'm just moving into 2 panels from play slop boards, perfect timing, great. And, some people have asked, well, how many works do I need for a series? I mean, for me, 2 paintings are fine. It can be 2 paintings, 4 paintings, 6 paintings. Now, in our Art Success Masters course, we're kind of saying, hey, 4 to 6 is a good average number, right? But that's not a hard and fast rule. It's really kind of whatever you want to do. And so in my Powerful Design and Personal Color course, and Lisa can show you where you guys can learn all about that course if you're not familiar with it, because that was the course I created in 2018 before COVID hit and before everyone went online, right? I did this prior to that because I was on a mission to give artists kind of a lifeline who found themselves struggling with can't find who I am, don't know how to finish my paintings, don't know how to get unstuck. That was my first attempt. And I'd say it's been very successful. I've worked with over 1,000 artists in that course. And I encourage you, if you have not taken that course, just this little like free masterclass that shows you kind of what that course is about. So that course is about working in a series, and you would create 16 paintings, but divided into 4 groups. So the first 4 are done in one palette, the next group is done in another palette, the next group is done in another palette, and then the next group is done in another palette. And by the end of it, you're not going to be a pro, okay? But you will have a very solid, fairly concrete foundation in color and design, which is more than I ever had for decades. And that's what I wanted to provide, because I felt like, without a foundation, it's really, really tough to give yourself limitations when you don't even know what you're making limitations from. If you don't understand color and design, it'd be awfully hard to say, well, I'm going to use a limited palette, and I'm going to stick with saturated colors and curvilinear lines. Well, I've just talked about 3 design elements. And if you don't even know the design elements, you're going to be like, I'm going to use a brush, I'm going to use a board, and I'm going to use acrylic. You could do that too, but when it comes to parameters and limitations, the more educated and knowledgeable you are about your choices, it just becomes more fun. Okay, so I'm going to keep on here with these things. So working in a series, super, super important. Now, let's say that you've done a series of 10 paintings and you're kind of like, okay, I've done that and I'm kind of ready for something else. Maybe your series is all about bright saturated color and big shapes. I'll just keep it simple. You kind of exhausted that. You've sold all your work. You're in galleries or not, whatever. I'm just for an example. And you just don't want to get bored. How many of you have felt bored when you've kind of come to the end of a investigation of certain things, certain parameters, and been like, I could do another one of 10 of these or another 20 of these, but I just don't want to get bored. Have you guys ever felt that way? Because I have, and that's why I kind of jump around so much. Please in chat, let us know if that's ever happened to you. Like, I can't do another one of these, or I'm just going to be like, I'm out of my studio. That actually happened to me when I was doing these pretty watercolor paintings. It's like they were selling and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, if I do another floral, I'm literally going to not be happy. And I did quit painting for 10 years. That's severe, guys. And again, don't want that to happen to you. So what might be an idea is to large shapes and saturated color, great, worked really well. Well, now maybe you're gonna kind of tweak your parameters a little bit, because obviously what you did worked, and a lot of you loved it, and other people responded and understood what you were saying. So maybe you change the scale of your work. You might go really large. You might go really small. I saw somebody recently in our Facebook group for Pro. Who was it? Yeah, that's a lot to ask myself to remember a name, but they did it. Lisa, you might remember. It's the person who was very inspired by Brian Rutenberg and did like a 4-square of his colors in 4 squares. So really focused on
Mary Schlace.
I think that's the name that came to mind, but I didn't want to make a mistake. Her work was amazing. She scaled it way down. And I would say to her, wow, have you considered going to 12 by 12? Or how about 18 by 18, right? Because it was super successful. So if you have success, you could change the size. You could say, okay, this is about saturated color and the large shapes. What if I do like saturated color, but I introduce a little bit of desaturation? Just a little bit. Like, it might be hard for you, and maybe that's not where you want to go. But when you give yourself a parameter that you're doubtful, you're not sure it's going to work, all the more reason to try it. You could say, I love saturated colors. So if I use grayed down desaturated colors, number one, I don't know what's going to happen. And number two, I think I'm not going to like it. Then you should definitely do it. Because I think whenever you feel that I see this happen all the time in Art Success Masters. People are like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to learn anything from that. I've already done it. And then they do it. And then 9 times out of 10, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And so, if you find yourself saying, no, like, I hate these colors, guess what colors you're going to use?
Yeah.
Truly, I challenge myself. I've got so many colors that I'm like, don't know why I got that. Oh, I probably got it on eBay and they threw it in there. And I'm like, I am not going to use that color. that's a challenge to myself. I'm going to prove it to myself. I'm going to love that color. I'm going to find a way to love it, because it just by itself, it's like, okay, it's this gross color. Maybe if I combine it with pink, or if I add black and white to it, or if I add yellow to it, maybe it'll be like a color that becomes my favorite. Challenge yourself anytime you catch yourself saying, I don't really think that I would like it. You're saying that because you're guessing. You're not saying that because you actually tried it. It's one thing to try it and say, now I hate it. I hate it for sure.
That's
It's
right.
another thing to say, I think I'm going to hate it. There's a difference. Okay.
And Pam, I just want to mention sometimes we don't try things because we're actually afraid to try, and we don't realize it's fear, but it is. And because I know, like the grid thing, they kind of freak me out, but but I've done a couple and I lived through it. I'm happy to say, and they turned out.
Can I point out that some of your grid paintings, didn't they get awards, got into shows like Lisa?
I know. So anyway, try to jump over that hurdle, and don't let fear win. Beat it.
And I want to say the very next thing is the next point that I wanted to, if I can talk clearly on a Monday, which is asking a lot. What Lisa just said, my number 4 is take risks, right? So that she's like using her ESP. Take risks, avoid what's comfortable, which I kind of just went over that. Your personal voice lives and breathes just like you, and just like life itself. It isn't meant to be stagnant, so always invite play into your studio with new materials, new brushes, new color combinations. Make your own brushes, try it, So whatever feels new and exciting, seek excitement always. And this is something, again, Rick Rubin is a guru to the musicians out there. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Adele, and numerous other big bands, a lot of like heavy metal bands too. But you can even look him up on YouTube, Rick Rubin, Rubin, and he's this laid back hippie like guy. You're like, what? And he's not even a musician himself, and yet he is the guy that every musician and like famous musician who wants to, I guess become famous, which I don't know if that's the right way to, maybe they just want to become the best of themselves. Let's put it that way. Cause it's not that they want fame. I think they just want to be their best self. And he's on YouTube and he's being interviewed, and he has this laundry list of all these famous musicians. But this book that he's written, The Creative Act, he talks about all kinds of creativity. So artists, writers, musicians, it doesn't matter what profession you are. And he himself says that you always need to be chasing what excites you, and what works for you, what sells for you, what other people like doesn't mean that's what you're excited by, right? And I can say that for myself. I just wasn't excited by poppies. And I love poppies. I love peonies, and I love, I do love watercolor, but I myself, what excites you is what you feel. It's what you feel inside. And so you need to constantly make sure, like, it's almost like, a temperature, a thermometer gauges temperature. A barometer gauges atmospheric pressure, I think. There are gauges that measure if your plants need water. You need to have a gauge for yourself on how excited you are. Is it a 10? Are you a 10 today in excitement level? Or are you like a 1 or 2? Just showing up in your studio, doing another thing that you know is going to work, the outcome, and you're like bored stiff. And, so where are you on your own personal meter? Because you got to aim for a 10. You might get to be an 8 or a 5, but if you start with a 1 and it's a 1, you're kind of like, ugh. So, and sometimes I'm like that on a Monday. Okay, so my next number 5 is, if you see many styles because you work in many mediums and ways of working, don't worry, please. And again, Rick Rubin, I've been listening to him every single day as I walk our dogs. And he's kind of like this little voice in my head that makes me feel better about myself, because I do work in a lot of different mediums and I do have a lot of different styles. And I don't really care. Like I deep down don't care. And he's he's reinforcing the don't care part. So of course he's become my best friend, even though I just listen to him and he doesn't know me. So what he says is, it means you're curious and you're experimental and you wish to be excited by what you see. This is him talking. He's like, that's what you should be going for. Okay. Now, this can serve you well if you develop these avenues over time. And this is me saying, like, don't rush this, because your personal voice has its own timeline. It's not going to listen to you. You know, you might be in a hurry, but your personal voice is like, no, I'm not. So you can't rush it. And the only thing that you can do is show up more, paint more, put more time into your studio. That's what will speed it up. But just saying that's your goal, if you don't paint a lot, it's just not going to happen. So I wanted to do a little drawing for you guys. And he also says, this is something he said this morning: time is for learning. Time is for learning. Don't rush it. Now, many famous artists have changed their style throughout their career. And if you don't know these names, I know you know Picasso, but if you don't know Damien Hirst, Hirst, Jackson Pollock, you probably know him. Gerhard Richter, you probably know him because he's I think the highest paid artist in the world. If you look at his history of art, I mean, he's done everything from like photorealism, photography. He's most recently hung up the totally abstract expressionist paintings that have had like millions of shows around the world and made him the highest paid artist. He's recently said, that's my last painting. I'm not doing this anymore. That takes a lot of courage and guts. Okay. So, look up artists you love, like look at their history of art if you can find it, because you'll find that they did not stay stagnant. They probably had a lot of different things they were doing. So I want to show you this little diagram. This just popped into my head for artists who have multiple ways of working. They work in multiple mediums, so that can be one of the reasons why. It's sticking to my board that I actually cleaned off, and this is just a piece of freezer paper. It's as basic as it gets.
I'll be right back, ma'am.
Sure. This is you in the middle, and hopefully you can see this. And I'm going to draw a smiley face, okay, because you're happy. And when you're happy, you're like a child. Children are happy. We just had our 3-year-old granddaughter and our 1-year-old granddaughter, and they're happy most of the time, not always. But they're, when they're, let's say if they're playing with art materials, they're super happy. And if you observe them, they're doing all kinds of things. So let's just extrapolate that happiness, that feeling of happiness to you in your studio right now. And here's you, and you've tried, maybe this is a medium you've tried. This is a new brush you've tried. This is a new color palette you've tried. So new colors. This one is, maybe you timed yourself. You timed some exercises. So that gives you a different result because, 30 seconds a drawing is going to look different than something you spent a whole lot of time on. This one you did a series based on black and white. So you can see that these can be many, many things, right? And as you get older and show up in your studio, you're going to have a lot of spokes. This is like a wheel, right? These are like wheels to a spoke. This is like spokes to a wheel. Spokes, wheels to a spoke. Wow, that was funny because I caught myself. So this is you, and you're kind of like feeling a little sad when you look at all of this work. You're like, wow, like why am I all over the place? Well, you're all over the place because you're curious, and you're actually doing what Rick Rubin tells you to do. So that's why you should have a really big smiley face, right? Don't be upset with yourself. And you don't have to believe me, just believe Rick, because Rick knows a lot more than I do. Now this is the wheel, right? It's all the spokes in it. And you're at the center and you're super happy. Now, here's how to make yourself even happier. Of all these things you've done, you're not going to love them all, right? You might have loved this new brush you made. You're so intrigued by this new brush that you're like, you know what, this is really worth investigating. So I'm gonna make this a big circle. This is worth a series. This one's going to become a series, and I'm going to not just do one work. I'm going to do a whole series of works. And you're just going to keep blowing this up, doing more and more work here, because this one really made you happy and excited. And you're going to keep doing this until you're so like you've done it, you know, you're ready to move on. That's enough. These are all represent either series of work or individual works. It doesn't really matter. But this one was really worth it. And you might say, not so intrigued by that one. This one, I love whatever medium you try. Let's say it's encaustic for the first time. You're like, wow, I can't believe how much I love this. I'm going to do some more. I'm going to do a lot more. Okay. And these can be happening simultaneously in your studio. It's not like you have to do only one series at a time. So these represent series. Okay. Now you're not going to like all these avenues you try. You might have hated this palette, but then you're like, I'm going to try another palette. And this one's like, whoa, I love this palette. This series is about partly the palette, you know. Okay. Now, as you do this, and you start to do this, and this represents a lot of time. This does not happen overnight. This takes years. And, you know, I could go around this, but you get the point. So guess what? On your web, if you have a website or not, but this here is, for those of you who care about, you want to be a professional artist, this one says to a gallery, you're serious. They may like this one more than these two, but maybe they see something from this series on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You know, maybe you submit work to a gallery and you're going to focus on this body of work, and the gallery is going to be like, whoa, I love this body of work. Now that's great. They don't have to like this body of work, and you don't have to show them this body of work, and you don't have to show them this body of work. This is gallery A, and this could be a gallery that likes all three of these. Now the galleries I'm in, fortunately, they love everything. Like they're not going to say, Pam, I only want your encaustic. Pam, I only want your acrylic. I only want your encaustic monotypes. I mean, there could be galleries like that, but I don't necessarily like those galleries. So guess what? You get to choose who shows your work, right? It's not just a one-way street. Galleries are shopping for artists, but you're shopping for a gallery that you love. And that is not easy to find. Okay, this one is gallery B. You're sending out your proposals and you're going to focus on this body of work. Don't worry about this body of work. That's going off to gallery A. They're happy. This gallery wants this work, and this gallery wants this body of work. Now, as these galleries get to know you and sell your work, they're going to be like, wow, I love this body of work. What else have you got? And then you show them this body of work, and they're like, yeah, give me some of those too. And then people start buying that. Now this body of work is also going to this gallery. This can happen, okay? But it's not going to really happen until you put the time in to make multiples of the stuff you love. There are going to be a lot of pathways that don't have legs. You cut them off, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm really, but here's the thing. This thing you did here with an X in it is as important as this and this, because this is one less thing you have to spend your life doing now. You've just narrowed the field. And the more things you try and can cross out and say, gosh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I don't want to do this. Can you see how many times you send out these things, these feelers, and these can represent extremes, you know, like if you're working in this medium and then this medium, those are extremes. Or if you're working with a brand new brush versus store-bought brushes, like that can be an extreme. But the point is that every time you shoot out a new feeler based on a little seed of an idea, you get the option to say, yeah, I did this, but you know what? I love and this is another thing. I love the result. I was so inspired by a painting. I copied that painter and I love the result. But you know what? I hated the process. And that's happened to me many times where I'm like, I see somebody, I love their work. It speaks to me. But if I copy them, and I encourage you to copy, because what copying does is it tells you what you have to go through to get there. And if you hate the process, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to want to do it again. You're not going to be willing to put yourself through that misery. So again, draw yourself your own wheel. And for everything you've tried, draw a little spoke to your own wheel. Your spokes will be different from any other person that's on this, watching this live right now. Identify a few pods. You might call these, well, they're series. Identify a few series that have legs, okay? Like this one has legs.
This is great, Pam.
These are like, I am not a drawer, guys. I need to have a pod. I do have a series of drawings that I absolutely love. And but they're abstract drawings. But I never did a series large enough. Anyways, life is short. So the reason to send out all these feelers and plant a lot of different seeds, look at, if you guys are gardeners at all, look at how many times you get excited in the springtime and you get out your seed catalog and you're like, I want this and this and that and this and this. And then you've got like limited space in your garden and you have to be like, well, now I have to make choices. That's what your art life is all about. You've got to make choices. And these choices here, the ones that really have legs, are based on how you feel. So like big happy face here, you're really happy here, right? And you're not, these guys make you sad because of process, because of materials, because they're too expensive, because they take too much time, because X, Y, or Z, doesn't matter. But if you guys like put this diagram in your sketchbook and every time you try something different, draw a new spoke and it's got a big question mark. You don't know if it's going to become a series, but don't knock yourself out. Don't blame yourself for having multiple spokes in your wheel. That is something that Rick Rubin says you need to have. So I'm with Rick.
That's right.
Okay, so I was almost going to grab my sandpaper instead of my mouse. Okay, so all right,
Where
next
are we
one,
on your
number
list?
6. Accept failure. What's that? Oh,
somebody was asking about
accept
your
failure
list.
is one of. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm going to mute.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, well, if you guys are asking for a copy of the list, I will post this in Pro and I'll post it, anybody who's on my mailing list. So if you want to be on my mailing list, the easiest way to do that is just to go to artandsuccess.com. Most of you on here, I recognize your name. So, but if you're not, just go to artandsuccess.com and click on freebies and just give me your name and email and I will send this out to you. And if for some reason you don't get it, because sometimes things go into spam, then you can reach out to me at support@artandsuccess.com. So let me just put that little banner in here.
Do I have that?
I don't think so. Let me add it. Okay. Lisa, if you can add okay, thank you. Okay, so number 6 is accept failure is one of the greatest things that can happen. Failure brings you one step closer to knowing what you would rather have. And in the words of Rick Rubin, and I guess that he's kind of my partner this morning, this is his quote: failure is the information you need to get where you're going. So if you don't fail, how are you going to know? I've always felt that failure is one of the most important things that happens in my studio. So I'm not down when I fail, and I fail a lot. I have all these experiments that are like, oh my gosh, that's awful. But either I'm going to tweak it a bit and keep going with it because I really need this end result, which I did do that. I failed many times to get tracing paper to work as collage paper, the right surface quality, the right thickness of paint, the right, no brush strokes showing whatsoever. I had a lot of failures at first, but I didn't just drop it. I kept going until I got it to work. So the reason failure is important is because either if it's parameters that you've chosen for a series and that's just not floating your boat, then you know to drop it and you can change it. But if it's leading to a technique that you must learn, failure is important because either you're not going to quit with that idea, you're going to be like, no, it's not working, darn it, I'm going to figure it out till it does work. Or it's like, no, this painting failed because I totally cannot stand this process. and that happened to me as well. I dropped the process and trying to even paint like this because it wasn't feeling right to me. That you could call it a failure, but I call it like a discovery. So maybe flip the word failure into the word discovery, and it's like all of a sudden it's a positive instead of a negative.
That is perfect.
Yay, right? I had 5 discoveries today. Failures. And I'm not going to beat myself up because I had a lot of discoveries today. All right. And then number 7 is to continue learning, develop beginner's mindset, and begin with a question and use it to guide an adventure of discovery. Failures, that's the work of an artist. The surprises along the way can help expand your work and even the art form itself. And that's another quote from Rick Rubin. So I want to just talk a little bit about beginner's mindset because recently I did a survey with our pro group and I asked everybody to tell me, I had questions that they answered. And then I had one question that said, well, like, how do you, like, what level do you consider yourself to be? And some called themselves an advanced artist, some said beginner, and some said intermediate. And that's, of course, what you would expect. But then I had a comment section for people to, like, expand on what they hoped would be contained in this Art Success Masters course, which we're going to start over in the fall. And a few people said, hey, you know, I'm really advanced. Are you going to be giving me a lot of new challenges? And I'm like, and I just want to tell you guys this. If you're really advanced, you shouldn't need me at all to give you more challenges. I think the word advanced in art means not that you've reached some level of competency. It's like you actually have beginner's mindset. I think that's what advanced means. Now, when you're a beginner, you have beginner's mindset because that's the only choice you have. But what happens when you're a beginner with anything? Like, do you ever notice when you change mediums and you try something for the first time, you're so excited, right, Lisa? Like when you try plastic, excited.
Yes.
And then you fail or have new discoveries. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is hard, right? So when you first do something for the very first time, you're full of excitement. And this is what happens when you go to a workshop and you're excited. And then you come home and you're like, you're going to sit there comatose, like, oh my gosh, I'm not excited anymore. Number one, I'm not surrounded by all these people. I don't have the instructor there. And I forgot what they said because I didn't take notes, or you did take notes and you're still not excited. And you're bummed because you bought $1,000 in supplies that you don't even want anymore. So you're bummed for a lot of reasons. So beginner's mindset means that if you lead with what if, okay, you walk into your studio and it's like, what if I do this? What if is something you haven't tried yet, and it can only come from you. I don't know what you haven't tried yet. So don't look at me. If you're an advanced artist, oh my gosh, you better be like writing what if. And I'm going to give you guys an assignment this summer. I've already told you that, those of you who are in pro, there's going to be quite a lengthy introspection because now you've been painting for 2 years since going through Art Success Masters, and you're not the same artist anymore. And if you don't know that, this questionnaire thing that I'm going to ask you to do is going to prove it to you. And I think sometimes we don't realize how far we've come until we look back. And so that's going to be what's going to happen here. You're going to look back. You're going to compare things to what you're doing now versus what you did before. And I'm going to ask you some questions. And your answers to these questions are going to form your goal, your personal goal, which cannot be the same for hundreds and hundreds of people. Like, there's no way that I can create one little addition to my course that's going to make everybody happy. That's not my job. My job is to make you think ahead in a sphere that is only about you, not about everybody else. Because what's good for those 10 people may suck for you. So I need you to personally put in the time. Because I can't do that for you, but I can ask you questions, and I hope that you're going to answer them. So, all right, so we've moved on from failure, and we're going to learn that the new word for failure is discovery, and we're going to adopt beginner's mindset because that's what keeps things fresh. So getting back to that, if you're an advanced artist, um, think of it in terms of, do I have beginner's mindset? If you have beginner's mindset, you're already advanced, because that will get you much further than saying, I'm an advanced artist. I've taken this course and that course. I've got a degree. I've got an MFA. I've gotten all these awards. I saw all my work. I've got 10 galleries that love me. I'm advanced. That's not what makes you advanced. That actually can shut you down. It's such a weird thing, isn't it, Lisa? Like, because you're in galleries and so am I. And it's like, there's this thing that happens when you start selling your work. It can be a bummer, because number one, you know now what the gallery wants from you. You know what the clientele want. You're like, but do I want to paint like 1,000 more of these and continue to make the gallery happy, or do I want to continue to make myself happy? So that's why by the time you do get into a gallery, you better make darn sure that you're pretty happy painting in that process that they love. Because if you change midstream, and this has happened to some artists, the gallery may drop you. I mean, that's just the reality. And that's why it's important for you to, like, you're not here to please other galleries, and you're not here to please anyone in social media, your spouse, your pets, your best friends, because they are all of differing levels of experience in art. And the only one that actually matters is you. And that means your soul. If you, as long as you're true to your soul and you don't get into galleries, everybody hates your work. And I know this is really, really hard, but I think the artists who become masters that we look back on, like Van Gogh, and everybody really, well, the impressionists put all the impressions together, like a huge percentage of the population detested their work. Imagine how they felt. They felt pretty awful because they thought they were onto something cool, and they were, but in their time period, nobody could wrap their head around it. They were like, no, I mean, well, you call that a person? I can't even see the edges, like Renoir, and they're comparing him to somebody like, Da Vinci. Well, he's not Da Vinci. So you got to just, the most important thing is that you have to look inward at all times. And I think that's one of these points coming up, which, all right. Let me find this one here. Yeah, try not to listen or rely on anyone on social media. And that's coming from me. And I do have quite a following on social media, but I have to say that I post on social media because that's part of growing awareness of my school, right? That's why I do it. I don't do it because I want to feel happy about the comments they're giving me. I mean, I really appreciate it when you guys do comment. That I don't want to say that I don't appreciate that, but I don't rely on it. I think that's the word, right, Lisa? Like, we don't rely on that, because what if most of the people who normally love my art just didn't see my post that day, and I get a lot of people who just like say, please DM me if you're willing to do the NFT thing, which is usually what I get.
Oh, that's awful.
You guys, you're probably all getting those. We're all getting hit by these NFT people. And I still to this day don't even know what in the world they do. But we won't get into that now.
No.
Anyways, just use social media because you want to share, but then don't take the comments to heart if they're negative. Definitely you can take them to heart if they're making you feel good. But on the other hand, if you say, is my painting finished? And you know what? If you ever catch yourself asking anybody that, I can tell you right now, your painting is not finished.
That's right.
If you ever, and I've caught myself dozens of times, I'll be like, oh, I really want this to be done for many reasons. I'm tired of working on it. I need it for a show. It just needs to be done. I want to move on. I'll like text an image to my husband who's at work, and he's got so many things going on, and I'm hoping he'll be like, love it, or my son, who's even more critical. He's way more critical. My son's the ultimate, and I know he'll tell me the truth. And it's like he'll have this like I can tell it's either love it or nice, and then I'm like, oh, he doesn't like it. It sucks. So I use my family, and like my son Evan is the ultimate one I trust because he has a really good eye. He's a really good photographer, and he's had background in graphic design. My husband, like, he almost never counts. I hate to say it, but he doesn't, because he always loves everything. And that just doesn't work. So if you ever catch yourself like, is my painting finished? Or you post it in our pro Facebook group and you're like, hey guys, I'm in Clarify, and I think I'm done. What do you think? And then you go on and you describe all the things that you like and you don't like. But there are some things you're not sure of. And okay, it's okay to do that, because you're going to get some really high quality comments that might help you understand why it is that you feel like you're not quite done. That's a little different scenario. But most people who are not in our pro Facebook group, because we are kind of a different group, I'd say that we all do kind of think in terms of design terms, and we really kind of know what we're talking about, because we really put in the time to understand the visual language of art. But in general, if you see any other Facebook group where it's like people are putting out a poster saying, is my painting done? And you don't write anything with it. Number one, your painting's not done. It's just not, because you wouldn't have asked that if it were done. You'd be like, my painting is finished, and this is why. So that's what you really need to be able to do, is be able to explain why it is your painting is finished, and post it when it is done. And if it's not done, say, my painting is not done yet. I'm not feeling that great about it. And here's why. There's something about the color that's not right for me. There's something about the upper left-hand quadrant that's still bugging me, and I just can't put my finger on it. Now, if you do that, that's a totally different story, because now you're saying, this is bothering me. This is what it is. And is there anybody out there who can help me? That's a totally different post. And those are really valuable, right, Lisa?
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
And it most likely just needs more time to talk to you.
yeah, Lisa's a big person for one of these next things I have, which is to not look at your work when you're not sure. You're a big person for, and you've given so many people like this great advice of, you just need to put it away for a while.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, give it time. And I know we
Um,
don't want to give it time. We want it to be done now, but seriously, give it time. I mean, I have edited things 3, 4, 5 months, so after I even had it in a gallery, and it bugged me, but I wanted to get it in that gallery, and of course it came back home, and I put it away in timeout and got it back out, and it finally, I realized what it needed.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I mean, I've had to take my signature off. I've had to white out my name on the back of the painting and paint over it or sand it, or, it's so funny. But hey, you're being true to yourself. Like,
That's right. Yeah.
okay, here's number 10. Number 9 was, don't listen or rely on social media, especially when it's critical, negative, and, don't let it bring you down, because honestly, you just need to think of all of those people as like your pets, or because your pets don't understand art, and they don't either. Just assume that they have absolutely no background in art, because they probably don't. And they're just mean. Like, social media, it's okay to say something with like constructive criticism, but when it's just blatantly mean, like, my 3-year-old could do it, which I've gotten. And as I've told you, I just smile. It's like, wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Because the last thing they want is like somebody to thank them when they throw it at you. Like, if they insult you, say, wow, thanks. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And they'll never come back to your site again, because they're mean people. Plus, when people say I paint like a 3-year-old, to me, that is the biggest compliment I could ever get. Now that I've seen Willa paint, it's like, wow, I wish I could paint like her.
So
And number 10, as you continue to raise the bar, your paintings will challenge you. But those are two things that go together. Your paintings won't challenge you if you don't raise the bar. Like, if you're content doing this one thing and doing it really, really well, and I've seen many artists do this, and all I can think of is that their paintings are challenging them, and they wouldn't challenge me, but that's okay. Like, it just needs to challenge you. I'm looking at it like, wow, I can't tell one painting from another. They definitely have like a very recognizable voice. And then I put myself into their shoes and say, my gosh, I would be so bored. I would go crazy. But that's not what that person's feeling, right? So That's why it just doesn't matter. You just have to be true to yourself and make sure that your own paintings are challenging you and that you're growing by making new discoveries, i.e., failing, because failure is going to help you learn what it is you need to do. And you will benefit by allowing the paintings to rest, as Lisa said, to put them out of sight for a while, so that you can approach it with new eyes. We get too close to our work and we stop being objective about it. And what popped into my head this morning is that it's kind of like, when you first meet somebody and you hit it off and you sit on a park bench and the next time you look at your watch, you've spent 4 hours talking to them and you feel like, wow, like, it's like a high because you've really connected with somebody. But then you feel like you're kind of exhausted and you need a break. You need time to go home and maybe not speak to that person for at least a day and digest all that stuff that you just talked about. So when a painting's going really well, you've had this relationship with your painting, you spent 4 hours with it, maybe 8 hours with it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I love it, or however you feel about it, but maybe you hate it. And so Lisa's advice too is just like turn it around, because you need time to digest what's working as well as what's not working. And when you come back with fresh eyes, it's like, whoa, I didn't see that I actually really love this part, or that I actually love the whole thing. And I was just needed a fresh look, right? So, okay, let's look at comments. That's all 10 things I had to add. Lisa, do you have anything new to add to that?
No, I think you hit everything.
Well, there's a lot more things that I'm sure a lot of you guys have to add, and we can go a little over just because. Oh, okay. Well, Marie is asking about the NFT thing, and Lisa, if you want to say a few things about that.
Well, I did comment back that NFTs are real, but anybody that's asking you on Instagram to buy your art for NFT, don't even talk to them, block them, delete them, because they are scammers.
Oh.
And they will get you for money. They'll get your information. I mean, anybody that's asking you, and if you've got a website and somebody says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about buying your art," well, you've got a website. If they're wanting to talk to you about buying your art, they're scammers. They're wanting to scam you. So,
okay, talk about what NFT stands for.
Non-fungible token. I think that's right. Yeah. And it's a digital thing, and I don't even know all the ins and outs of it. But I mean, there are legitimate NFTs, and it's a way to sell your art if you initiate the sale of and make your own NFT or do it with somebody.
Makes
then
sense.
Yeah, but that's something you initiate, not somebody coming and asking you for.
Gotcha. Oh, that's totally helpful. So in other
Yes.
words, if you're going to do an NFT, it better start with you.
Yes, that's right. And there's a lot of development that goes into it.
Okay, let's grab okay. I saw something here. Yeah, well, Natasha, you're right. Poor Van Gogh. He sold one painting his entire lifetime, and I think it was to a relative.
Oh,
Okay, so that's where you can't, and again, he really didn't want to paint in color. I read Van Gogh, The Life, which is an amazing book. It's supposed to be the most accurate, for those of you who love Van Gogh, the most accurate biography of his life. And most of everything we know about Van Gogh, his color work was done in 5 years. The rest of his life, he died in his 30s. So for 25 or more years, he didn't paint in color. But on the other hand, he did listen to his brother. So there's that. But he did own a gallery, and his brother kept telling him, Theo kept saying, gosh, guy, these impressionists are really all about color. You better start working in color. And then he did. And that's the work we know. But okay, for most times, you don't want to listen to anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to highlight this by Terry because I think it's helpful. Thank you for these tips. Very encouraging and motivational. I had hit the wall and wasn't painting, but now I'm ready to dive in again. That is our hope, is that, the whole point of these Momentum Mondays is hopefully to address something that will be helpful to you guys. And in the comments below this video, by the way, guys, we need topics that you're interested in, right? Right, Lisa? We need topics that you're like, do you just really want to watch me paint and do a demo? I know some of you will say yes, but on the other hand, there could be a lot of topics that you just want to chat about, like this one, which I think was really fun. And it made me think too, like, what are some top tips? Because I sometimes think of the title and I was like, well, now I better come up with some tips. Okay, let's see here.
Did you want to mention about Rex Art while we were
Oh
here?
gosh, yes. Okay, guys. So let me just grab something real quick. And Lisa, you can start to post those little links.
Yeah. They now have frames for 12 by 12s with panels, 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch, and 2 different sizes of frames. Let me just spotlight you here.
So, this is our granddaughter's painting, Willa. She's only 3. And I videotaped all the colors that she wanted to paint in this painting. And as I pointed out, my whole series is her colors. I wrote the names of the colors on the back of her painting, right? So it's there forever. And this is a precious painting, so I'm going to frame it for her. And look at the frame. It's all basswood. Now, this is the shallower, I think. Let me check. There are 2 depths of these frames, and they're made by Rex Art, and Lisa's going to post there. She's got the
Yes,
link.
I've got the coupon up. And if you go to the website, they are published and you can purchase them, and you can finish them with cold wax and oil or varnish or paint. And yes, the 2 sizes there. Yeah, that way you're able to compare.
Yeah, so see the difference in depth. So this guy is 1 3/8 here, almost 1.5, not quite 1.5. This one is 1 7/8, so almost 2 inches. Now, a lot of you guys might have a preference, right? Obviously, the difference and the reason that they're doing this is cost. The 1 3/8 will be cheaper than the 1 7/8. Okay. And then, as Lisa pointed out, we will do another video just about these frames and show you guys like a lot of different ways to finish them. You can varnish them with varnish. You can also just rub some cold wax medium on there. I've done that. That's what I usually do to seal in the wood. Just a thin layer, and then you can buff it. You can paint it a color. So like I asked my son, what color do you want me to paint the frame? And at first he said black, which black would be nice, but then he decided he just wanted it to be clear. So I will put either a clear varnish, polyurethane, or you can use some gloss medium, or you can use matte medium, whatever you want. But the color of the wood is actually quite nice. And so there are two things. Number one, yes, there's a coupon for all of you guys who are part of my school, Art and Success. So they've given you a code ANSBF 723. You get 10% off all of your frame orders through the end of July. And now these guys are they're a family company, and everything that they do is made in the USA. So they don't outsource anything. And they have packages, so you can buy like the frames in packages. Like I can't remember exactly what they said, but like a 2-pack or 6-pack as far as the frames go. And then you can also opt to have these panels, which are 1/8 inch. Okay, so the thing about the 1/8 inch panel is that they absolutely fit their frame, because they're making both the frame and the panel, right? So that's an advantage, because I'll tell you, I bought some of these guys on Amazon, and because they're not square, they don't fit in these panels, these frames, which are square.
That's
so
right.
The advantage, right, is that that if you paint something on their panels, it's going to fit their frame, and that's actually really great. The other thing they're doing is they're sending you several panels, like, I don't know, 5 or 6, if you opt for that option. And the cool thing about that I encourage you to do is paint a series, or just, maybe they're all slot boards and you develop them all. You've got 5 of these guys, and one of them is like your favorite. Well, that's the one that gets the frame. And now you're going to be like, those other 4, I'm going to finish those, and I'm going to definitely frame them. So it'll kind of like, if you buy these panels with the frames, you're going to be like, number one, think in terms of a series perhaps, and you're going to get several frames with your panels. And so that you're going to be all set to go. You're going to have everything in place, drawing you into the studio to play first, and then just develop choose a couple limitations for your series if you're able to do that. And then you'll find that, you really will be able to clarify your personal voice and get it to a point where you're really, really happy with it. So, Lisa, is that everything that we want to cover?
I think so, yes. And I did, a couple people mentioned that it is USA only. And another person asked about encaustic, and yes.
Ooh, let's well, okay, I have an encaustic. It's not great, but Lisa, do you have an encaustic you want to pop in?
My finished encaustic is not here. I have one in process I can show. But yeah, so this is encaustic. Can you see? It works great. And matter of fact, that's what I'm doing right now with the ones that I have from Rexart. So yeah, they're doing wonderfully. Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing, show the thickness of your board. It's an 1/8 inch.
Yes, this is an 1/8. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a 1/4 inch board. This is an ampersand panel, and I do a lot of my encaustic on that. So this is just what I think what I did on this one is I just did a monotype, and then it's not really done yet, but I want to show you how it doesn't matter which of the depths, like the 1 3/8 or 1 7/8, same thing. But I wanted you guys to see that whether you use an 1/8 inch deep panel or the ampersand panel, it fits in there just fine. See, so it's flush, and the reason for that, you can see it's flush, is that when I gave them the specs for my frames that I had, again, made at a local cabinet maker, which I had to buy 50 at a time in order to get him to do it, I said, I need your frames to accommodate 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch. So 1/4 inch is flush. It's just slightly, I'd say, just a hair below the surface. But the good thing is that most of us, if we're working in encaustic, we don't need to really go thicker than an 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch. And also, again, these frames are for flat panels. And when the advantage here is that flat panels are so much less expensive than cradled panels. And what you're buying here is the cradle. The frame is the cradle. So it's kind of like you're only going to cradle those paintings that you love. And that's what you're buying their frames for. The frame provides the cradle. It's as if this whole thing was a cradle panel. But if you have a cradle panel, you've just invested a whole lot more than a flat panel. And then the frames are quite affordable. So again, that's enough about Rex frames. We hope you guys like them. I ordered a ton of custom panels, and I'm going to mount my monotypes on them. And again, the reason why I used Rexart originally was because I needed custom sizes. And Lisa told me about Rexart. And I also had known about them, but never tried them. And then when I found out Lisa was using them, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to try it then. And yeah, awesome frames, awesome company. Okay, guys, anything else?
That's all I can think of. And I need to take off. So
all right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. See you later. Bye-bye. Thank you, Lisa.